Live long and perspire. It's the Fantastic Flim Facts Star Trek Movie Special, with one fantastic fact for each of the Star Trek movies, except for Star Trek Insurrection, and a whole Shatner's worth of bonus facts as well. This video is proudly sponsored by Eclairs. Eclairs. They're a long, thin, individual cake of choux pastry filled with cream and topped with chocolate icing that you can buy from shops. Which shops? I don't know. My advice is to go into any shop you see and ask them, "Excuse me, do you sell eclairs?" They will either tell you, "Yes, we do sell eclairs. In fact, this is an eclair shop." Or they will ask you, "What's an eclair?" At which point you will say, "It's a long, thin, individual cake of choux pastry filled with cream and topped with chocolate icing." They will either then remember that they do in fact sell eclairs, or tell you to fuck off and buy your eclair somewhere else. So remember, the next time you want a long, thin, individual cake of choux pastry filled with cream and topped with chocolate icing, think of eclairs. Star Trek the Motion Picture infamously features an extended sequence of Captain Kirk flying around and around and around the Enterprise. However, this was not in the script and was the result of a model-making mistake. In the scene, the shuttlecraft has to enter the Enterprise, but an idiot model maker forgot to include the door. Director Robert Wise forgot he could cut to the scene and return later, instead continuing to film as a small hammer was used to make the needed opening. The characters of Mr. Spock and Dr. McCoy rarely used their first names, as both were called Gavin, and studio executives feared this could cause confusion. In Star Trek II, the characters of James T. Kirk and Gavin Khan never physically appeared together. This is because both characters were secretly played by William Shatner. The actor created the alter ego of Ricardo Montalban so he could appear in T.J. Hooker and Fantasy Island at the same time. In later years, Shatner found this a huge strain and would only appear as Montalban in a seated position. Star Trek, the original TV series, was cancelled after its third season. William Shatner still has plans to make a fourth season, with the 118-year-old actor explaining, "I'm simply waiting for the rest of the cast to die first." Star Trek III was based on Spock actor Leonard Nimoy's real-life habit of hiding during filming. His character Spock was supposed to be in a lot more of the film, but it took weeks to track him down. Actor DeForest Kelley recalled, "We looked everywhere for him. You can imagine how stupid we felt when we realised he was directing the film, wearing a fake beard and a real hat." Leonard Nimoy was well known for writing two autobiographies, titled "I Am Not Spock" and "I Am Spock." It is much less well known he was working on a third autobiography at the time of his death, which would have been called "I Guess Some Other Prick Is Spock Now." Original plans for Star Trek IV saw it set in the future in a variety of fantastical alien locales, as is common for the franchise. Millions were spent on exciting new sets, model spaceships, and a firecracker to make something explode. This was scuppered when the keys to the studio were lost in a game of cards and or a fire. With William Shatner refusing to go home until he had been paid, they had no other choice than to borrow some cameras and film out on the street. Star Trek IV was set in 1987, but filmed in 1986. It was later praised for realistically depicting 1987 as pretty much the same as 1986. Star Trek V originally featured a radically different ending. Director, writer, star, alleged singer William Shatner stated, "Originally, the big glowing head really was God." And apologies for my lack of a Shatner impression, I really do not have talent. Anyway, what was I? "And I proved how science is more powerful than religion by performing multiple violent anal penetrations on God. The studio made me cut it, too foolish to appreciate the raw beauty." At one stage of development, the original ending of Star Trek V also included a cameo by Jesus. chancing upon his father, our Lord, being violated by Shatner, Jesus would have turned to camera and said, "I didn't need to see that." Whilst holidaying in England, producer, writer, director Harvey Bennett wandered into what he assumed was a previously unknown area. This vast, bleak land seemed devoid of all human life, with the exception of old decaying signs written in a bizarre and forgotten language. The experience inspired Bennett's choice to subtitle this film The Undiscovered Country. It was only later it was explained to him he had inadvertently wandered into Wales. Harvey Bennett candidly explained the real meaning of Star Trek VI. Idiots think that it was a metaphor for Chernobyl and the fall of the Soviet Union. But it's actually a metaphor for when you bang a chick and then she wants to hang around and be friends, but you're like, "Nah, bitch." Captain Kirk's death in Star Trek Generations had to be refilmed multiple times. Producer Rick Berman explained, "We were all excited to kill off Kirk, as none of us can stand Shatner, so we filmed all of them. Despite a dozen versions being filmed, the studio would not accept any of them, leading to the filming of a 13th and final ending." Berman reminisced, "At least him dying under a bridge is really lame." Plans for the character of Lieutenant Commander Gavin Data to be played by a real android had to be scrapped after studio executives found that all real androids were too racist to even pretend to be friends with a black person. Star Trek First Contact was almost the first R-rated Star Trek film. There were plans to include a graphic sex scene between Data and the Borg Queen, but it was scrapped following an argument over what would happen when an android ejaculates, turned into a fistfight and then a stabbing. Actor Brent Spiner said, "I felt a load of oil should come gushing out, but nobody agreed. It's tragic the audience never got to see Data's cum face." Despite being a Klingon, the character of Gavin Wolf is never seen throwing handfuls of his own shit at enemies, with the exception of a deleted scene from Star Trek First Contact, filmed at the insistence of actor Michael Dorn, who complained his turds were, quote, "going to waste." This was unlike co-star Patrick Stewart, whose turds were being sold online. Tragically, there are absolutely no interesting facts about Star Trek Insurrection. I tried, but there's really nothing. An average man's ejaculation contains between 4 and 6 calories. Do with that information what you will. Star Trek Nemesis was specially designed to disprove a popular opinion about the Star Trek films. People always said the even-numbered films were good and the odd-numbered films were bad, producer Rick Berman explained. "We knew we could either make a great odd-numbered film or a terrible even-numbered film. The latter was much easier, so we just made a piece of shit." Had Star Trek Nemesis somehow succeeded at the box office? Titles mooted for follow-up with the Next Generation characters included Star Trek Tedium, Star Trek Retirement, Star Trek Erectile Dysfunction, Star Trek The Phantom Menace, Star Trek Casual Friday, and Star Trek Folie à Deux. The real reason that Star Trek is simply called Star Trek is because nobody could be bothered to check how many previous Star Trek films there had been. It was supposed to be called Star Trek 15 or 20 or whatever it was, a studio insider told us, before going on to say, "We honestly thought the first Star Trek film would have been called Star Trek, but it turned out it wasn't, so we thought, well, why not?" Paramount executives fooled director J.J. Abrams into making Star Trek by telling him it was secretly the next Star Wars film. So successful was this ruse that Abrams didn't work out the truth until attending the movie's premiere. Speaking of it later, Abrams said, "It's a shame, as I used up all my good ideas for Star Wars on that movie, and then my actual Star Wars films were shite." Star Trek Into Darkness got its title from feedback given during an early test screening. One of the audience cards suggested we hurl the film into a trash can or another area of darkness where it could never be inflicted upon another person, director J.J. Abrams explained. We did consider that, but the studio said no, as apparently it cost them loads of money. Director J.J. Abrams got his revenge on Paramount for their earlier deceit by tricking them into thinking that Star Trek Into Darkness would be a good movie. Abrams would call Paramount executives every day and say things such as, "This movie is amazing, it'll be like the best movie ever, and this will totally be the first Star Trek movie to win an Oscar." Original Captain Kirk actor William Shatner camped outside the Paramount lot until it was agreed he could appear in Star Trek Beyond. We had him wait at the studio all day every day for the entire shoot, in costume, but we never used him, producer J.J. Abrams explained. We never paid him either. The truth is, we don't like him. The actor eventually did one day of filming after everybody else was finished, performing a record-breaking 318 takes of him saying the word eclair. "Darling." "Yes, sweetie." "Do we have any eclairs?" "What was that?" "Do we have any eclairs?" "What's an eclair?" "It's a long, thin, individual cake of choux pastry filled with cream and topped with chocolate icing." "No, we haven't got any." Oh. Anyway, that's the end of the Star Trek Fantastic Films Fact Special. Thanks for watching. Please like and... "Darling." "Yes, sweetheart?" "I'm going out to the shops. Should I buy some eclairs?" "Oh, yes, please." Nice. Please like and subscribe and let me know if they make another Star Trek film. Goodbye. Hello? Oh, hey, gorgeous. Now I can talk. She's gone to the shops to buy eclairs. What? Oh, it's a long, thin, individual cat.